Good evening everybody, welcome back to One Hub Racing for the first race in the Precision tier, the second highest tier here at One Hub Racing. Season 16 starting off the 10 round season with a new circuit to the F1 games, unless any 1980s arcade machines had this track on it, and I sincerely doubt that somehow it is the Zandvoort circuit for the Dutch Grand Prix. Who will be the first winner of the Precision tier season? We have two of last season's champions in this tier, so it is definitely going to be one to watch. I am Luke Etheridge. I'll be taking you through this tier this season alongside Mac, who we've had a few technical difficulties unfortunately with the prospect tier race, so he should be joining us shortly. That is also why we are starting 5 minutes late, just waiting for Sam, who is currently taking us over the final few stages of that prospect race. He's driving in this tier, just waiting for him to join the lobby, and it is going to be an incredibly exciting tier, let me tell you that. We don't have much history of how these drivers are doing around this circuit. They were asked in the pre-race interviews how they felt about this track, and it was a mixed reaction. Some of them enjoyed it, some of them didn't. A lot said it would be a tough circuit to overtake on, so this could be a very close and interesting qualifying indeed. And talking of close qualifyings, the slowest and the fastest drivers in qualifying night, which was around the Bahrain circuit, so around 15 to 20 seconds longer than this track. The gap between first and last place, half a second. That is all that separated them around that track. If we get anywhere near that sort of levels of closeness tonight, it is going to be an incredibly exciting round. I can assure you of that. So who do you guys think is going to win? Who would your predictions be on for this season? Maybe the fastest of those who started earlier on in the season. Which at the moment, if you look at the fastest in qualifying night, that was CSBG Jimbo Manzi, who I believe is going to be absent for tonight. I think he's actually at the Styrian Grand Prix for the MotoGP, so not a bad place really to start your races, to start the season off. He might be missing the first race, but he's enjoying seeing some top class motorbike action, I'm sure. Maybe one of last season's champions. I said I was going to go through who they are. There is one of them, Janelle 16, winner of the Precision Tier Championship last year. Did an absolutely fantastic job. Just behind him in the championship actually was Danestar. So Janelle won that with 1 round to go of the season. So it was going to be close between those guys, I'd expect, near the top. Other ones who you might expect to do well, we do have last season's pinnacle, well, not last season's pinnacle, sorry, last season's podium tier champion is also here. Last year he was Eva Hannon, this time it is Verheyen. He was another driver. When he qualified on pole, I think it was only one race last season when he qualified on pole, he didn't end up winning. So if he gets his qualifying right, he's not the most optimistic about this track. You can expect good performances from him, despite not doing the best last season. Ivan, who will be in the Haas, he's not there at the moment. You can expect a fantastic job from him at this season, maybe just because he was second in this tier on the qualifying night, just 9,000 behind Jimbo Manzi. He has said he's looking forward to this. He feels much more comfortable on this game than he did on the last one, and that seems to be a theme across all the drivers really in this tier, that they do feel more comfortable on this game than they have on previous ones. So hopefully we might see some good performances from him. He was 14th last season in Precision. This year he said he's aiming for the top 5. Many quick drivers as well. We do have a pinnacle tier driver from last season in Ollie Flavel. Unfortunately for him, he was towards the bottom of pinnacle tier, so now that he has dropped down a tier, it'll be good to see how he can do in this tier. But yeah, any predictions from you guys who you'd expect to do well? Janel even said in the drivers press conference before the race that he might not be too surprised if Khalifa, his teammate, starts challenging for him. And Khalifa last time around last season was not really close, 12th in the championship. They did work extremely well, them two together, to take home the Constructors' Championship. Will we see any more of that this time around? Who knows? Janel says we might even get some Hamilton-Rosberg-esque rivalry between the two, so we'll have to wait and see for that. Just still waiting, as I said, for some of the drivers to come in, so we'll take you through the full One Hub calendar. Well, actually, first we'll take you through the track tonight, one that the drivers won't be as familiar towards, so it might be interesting to see how this goes. Zandvoort circuit. You can see there 14 corners, first used in F1 way back in 1952, where it more resembled a fast oval rather than the infield section that you see now. Last used in 1985 was the final victory for Niki Lauda in his illustrious F1 career, brought back originally for this season, but obviously with the COVID-19 pandemic that has caused a lot of issues, so unfortunately it won't be there this season in F1. An incredibly narrow track, could be difficult to overtake on in real life, but thankfully these drivers always seem a bit more opportunistic than the real life F1 drivers, so we'll have to see just how opportunistic they are feeling, as we are now going to get underway for the first qualifying session of the season in the Precision tier. Who is going to get to the best possible start this season around Zandvoort? They'll be hoping for dry weather. It's been dry in both of the qualifying sessions so far. Podium qualifying time, just to give you an idea what sort of times we are expecting, was a 1 minute 8.5. So anything in the low 1 minute 8s could be good enough to get yourself pole position around here, and that is of course what they'll be aiming for, because really narrow track, corners to watch out for overtaking, obviously, as at all circuits, the end of the DRS zones 2 here around this track, going into turn 1 and going to turn 11. They are probably the best, maybe even the only chances in conventional circumstances to get an overtake underway. And we do have our co-commentator Mac joining us. Perfect timing, Mac, and you can attest for yourself, this is not the easiest track to start a season on.
No, especially if it's raining and you've got 2 safety cars to deal with as well. But yeah, I'm here. How's it going?
It's going very well.
It's very tricky.
Good to have you alongside. I agree with you. This is a tricky circuit. The first time I drove around it on the F1 game was in one of the classic Benettons. Definitely did not enjoy it with the lower downforce that they had on the older Formula 1 cars. In the newer ones, it's pretty good. It looks like these drivers are going to have to cope with some weather problems as well. Luke's just retracted his message. Too late, Luke. I saw that message. I saw the words wet race appear in the chat, so we'll have to wait and see. If it is a wet race, that's going to make it, as you said, very challenging indeed, especially with all the spray that the drivers will kick up. It's a very narrow circuit. Going into the first corner, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, it's very tight through there. It looks a bit wider than you think, but it's honestly not. There's only one way around there. So if you get offline, then you might as well just let people go. Otherwise, there's going to be a massive crash waiting for you at the apex.
Yeah, that is very true indeed. Also, there's a few problems on this game at the moment with a pit entry. Sometimes it can give you a corner cut. And the pit exit, you've got to be careful not to be too enthusiastic coming out the pit lane, or you might very easily crash into the barrier on the outside. Don't ask how I learnt that fact, but if you've ever seen my driving on this game, you can probably guess how I found that out. Interestingly, very early on, obviously, in qualifying, don't know how one-hub qualifying works, same as most leagues, 18-minute short qualifying session. Interestingly, to see Damestar going out on the mediums, that's probably just to get a feel for the track rather than to set his fastest time, because if it is a wet race, of course, you aren't going to be using any soft tyres, so you might as well use them up in qualifying.
Yeah, we had a very bright start, and then it just suddenly started raining real quick, so maybe that's what's going on here too. But regardless, they're on track, getting some knowledge, and that's really important at this time. Knowledge is everything.
Yeah, definitely. Knowledge is everything around here. We will go on board then with Damestar. He is one of the race premium drivers that we have this year at One Hub, and he's now heading down towards turn 1. You can just see the slight bank in here, locking up the front right, but still comfortably makes the apex. Now through the slight S-bends at 2, and then left at turn 3 again. The banking can easily catch you out through there. Flat out through turn 4, and those medium tyres really not giving him the grip that he would have want. Through 5 and 6 in a deceptively tricky turn 7. You might be tempted to brave it flat out, but you won't make it around the corner if you do that. Turn 8, a very quick right-hander as well, and then braking and turning at turn 9 can be difficult for those that choose not to use anti-lock brakes. Coming in through turn 10 towards the end of this very fast-flowing middle sector of the lap. Second DRS zone open then to what could be one of the best overtaking opportunities on the lap into turn 11 and 12 through this stadium section there. Now heading towards the final couple of corners on this lap. 13, and then flat out towards the end, around the banking at turn 14, heading towards the finish line. Jonas, fastest man to set a time. Dainstar sticking to the right hand side of the track, and a 109.753. Very respectable first job on those medium tyres.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's definitely a good job on the mediums as well. He's only, what, 10, if that, slower than Lawrence, who's on the softs. There's another few people on a lap, but yeah, promising times already.
Yeah, Behanen, as I said, last year's champion in the podium tier with a 109.244, so that's a fantastic job from him. Last year's precision champion then, Janel here, he's just about to start, and it's interesting how he says, despite the gap he had to Khalifa on the last game, he thinks we could see some fireworks between them two, and given how close this tier is, we could see fireworks between any of these drivers.
Yeah, fireworks always spices it up for us in the box, which is very nicely air conditioned, and I appreciate that. Had to run, but yeah, we're all good.
I think the last couple of weeks we'd have definitely needed air conditioning and ice packs and all sorts of stuff to keep us cool maybe, but Janel looking nice and calm at the moment with an extremely colourful green and pink helmet. I must say, how is he doing at the moment with the lap times? He was fastest of anyone in Sector 1, obviously a personal best of his own in Sector 2, so we'll see how this is across the line. Probably not surprising that he goes fastest at the moment. Again, fastest of everyone in the final sector as well, so 109.220. Very good lap time from him. Lukey, who slotted into 4th place, he's currently the fastest man in the middle sector, and he's not too far behind either, so it's matching what we saw in qualifying night. These drivers are going to be in it extremely close. One slight mistake could cost you. Where would you say the really crucial corners are to nail this on a qualifying lap?
All of them probably. It sounds like a simple answer, but if you mess like turn 1 up, you could probably not be as compromised as much, but if it's turn 3 or 4, then you're probably going to lose some time in the next sector, so definitely you need to get those corners definitely right, but and then the chicane at the end of sector 2 as well.
Yeah, you don't want to be too greedy heading towards the chicane at the end of sector 2. That is where Scopefielder is coming to now in the Alpha Tower. He said he's really excited to be back at One Hub and enjoys this track, so we'll have to see what he can do at the moment in the Alpha Tower. His times at the moment look, well, fastest of anyone in the first sector, nearly the first man to get under 30 seconds in that first sector, so let's see how he does across the line. Matches it up as well, fastest man of all, 109.203. Top 5 separated by a tenth of a second is absolutely incredible. Still 12 minutes to go, obviously, still a lot that can change here. Very early on in the season, obviously. Anyone here that you think might be able to spring a surprise this season and challenge for a championship that we perhaps wouldn't necessarily expect?
How you wouldn't expect? Maybe Jonas. I raced with him in the previous tier, so he's probably going to be thereabouts possibly. But I'm not too familiar with some of these guys, so I can't really say for sure at the moment. But also look out for Khalifa too.
To be honest, Jonas was one of the drivers I was thinking of. He says he enjoys this game more than the last one, and I definitely do. All the drivers seem to have said that, which I don't know whether that's a bit of kiddom, because you're not going to go before the first race of the season, yeah, I absolutely hate this game, I don't know why I bother, so there's probably a bit of that involved, but I agree, Jonas did show some good pace towards the end of the podium, quite famously. He got his first ever win as part of One Hub after being part for so many seasons, and he was absolutely delighted with that. And he's in a good position at the moment in 8th with a 109.543. Just like to point attention to those of you who are in the chat, you might have already spotted it. We do have the TAS system this year, which means I'm not talking absolute rubbish when I'm talking about the fastest sector times, as we've currently got Lawrence actually going fastest of anyone in the first sector, so it might be interesting to watch his lap just ahead of Jonas. There are some commands in the chat. If you use !help, it will come up with all of those, so don't be surprised if in the race if I get a bit distracted flicking between that screen and the main screen, so I might miss some action with the camera work, but I'll try to do my best as Lawrence now round the final couple of corners. Dainstar getting ever closer to that 1:08, and it wouldn't surprise me if maybe Lawrence is the first one to get underneath that barrier. No, it is an improvement though. He goes up into 5th place. Jonas looking very quick at the moment. He is up into 8th, and again Kian in the Ferrari. He's absolutely shot around the first sector. Didn't get a personal best though unfortunately for him in the second sector, so we'll see how he does now as he comes towards the finish line in the Ferrari. Fastest of everyone, 108.994. Very good indeed. Holland is not the toughest track on the tyres. Not that that really matters too much because of the 2 pit stop rule we have here at One Hub. And just, what's your opinion on that as a driver? Because speaking for someone who mainly commentates, I love how it means if you have an accident early on, you're not really out of the race because everyone has to make the 2 pit stops.
Yeah, it's definitely an advantage to have everyone on mandatory too. Yes, sometimes it's a bit frustrating on a worldly of a strategy, but you have to pit again and that sort of costs your position. But on the whole, there's way more positives than negatives to the mandatory 2-stop rule. And as you say, if you have an incident on lap 1, you could still go win the race. So it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, definitely. Might be tough around here though if you have an incident on lap 1. It does seem like a very, very tight circuit. I feel like this would be one of them tracks in real F1 where we'd all be saying it looks so fun to drive around in qualifying. In the race, it'd probably be a bit of a bore fest in real life, but I'm sure these drivers will prove to have loads of entertainment. Who have we got on the lap at the moment? Sam just heading out on circuit. Ollie Flavelle down in 11th position at this moment in time. See what Kajman can do in the racing point then as he heads towards the finish line in the racing point. 109.752 in that very important 11th position because you will get free tyre choice for the race, although obviously if it rains, that's true for everyone.
Yeah, that's true, but Jade's on a lap, so I think he's on 11 now. No one feels he might be pulling in, but he invalidated his first setup. It was looking pretty handy as well, so that's unfortunate for him. But yeah, definitely want to be starting on fresh tyres if you can get the choice. He's going to finish his lap though. There you go. P7, 1092. Another one in the 1092 club.
Yeah, it seems to be, well, it's not, what's the opposite of an exclusive club? One that pretty much anyone can join, maybe? I mean, I don't know.
Pretty much, yeah, walk past to let you in, I think.
Yeah. We're just offering free cookies out to anyone who can get in the 109.2s. That's what it must be. We've got 7 drivers at the moment. Everyone who's set a time is within 1.2 seconds of each other. The only driver yet to set a time is Don DeBoer, and he's just about to head across the line for his first lap time of 110.658. Had run out of ERS towards the finish line. New ERS management system. Be interesting to see which drivers have adapted to the best of it. They should have had a bit of time now to practice and in other leagues. It is a bit simpler than last year, but if you're a bit too eager on the overtake button, maybe out of some of these slower corners, you could easily spin the rear tyres up and possibly end up facing the wrong way.
Yeah, that's happened. It's very easy to do as well. You think you've got the perfect line and then you just push the throttle a bit too much and then round you go.
Looks like Janel's found the perfect line around this racetrack then as he's gone up into first place at the moment on a 108.981. Fantastic lap from him, Verheyen, who I will probably call Ivahanen for a lot of this season because old habits die hard. He's set a personal best, and that's what I was saying about the traction, just losing it a bit there.
Right on cue, it's almost as if he's listening.
Glad to see the commentator's curse is still in action at full pace. Apologies to all the drivers because it will happen to you at some point this season. So Janel on provisional pole at the moment. His teammate Khalifa 12th. Interestingly, where they finished in precision last year. So it seems like they're keeping up with that sort of task at the moment. I'd love to tell you about any previous results at this circuit, but obviously the first time One Hub has been here, being new to the game, the first new track that One Hub has visited since Paul Ricard way back in season 12 at the start of F1 2018, which seems like an absolute lifetime ago, and with how close the grid is, 0.6 of a second between these two seems like an absolute lifetime at the moment. It's the difference between first and 12. That is a better lap from Khalifa, but only moves him up one position just behind Jonas Ulbricht at the moment. So it looks like we're getting a very close session as Ferrari got 2 drivers in the top 4 at the moment, so they're looking pretty good. Very early doors, you've got to say. Kian and Lawrence both looking extremely quick.
Yeah, there's quite a few up there actually that if you'd asked me before who would take pole, I definitely wouldn't have said that guy because I don't know how to pronounce it for one. But yeah, it's good to see though. Very good to see. It's very evenly matched.
Always good to see a good mix of drivers. And yeah, Kian, that is, well, from this session, that is a colossal chasm of a gap. 0.18 seconds. Fastest man at the moment. He's been fastest in the first sector on this lap. Jamel's the fastest in the final sector, and Dane's now fastest in the middle sector. So whether there's any interesting setups that they might be going for, we'll have to wait and see in the race. We'll have to see how quick they are, because sometimes it's not all about the time trial and ultimate qualifying lap. Obviously no points for qualifying, you get points in the race. It's similar to F1, but as you found out last season quite happily at Belgium, to get your point in the season, it's not all over if you finish outside the top 10.
No, it's definitely another one of the many great things about this league is you can finish 15th and get a point, because the fastest lap outside the top 10 really helps people down there that don't really have much chance of anything else, just to try and get a bonus point at the end. But yeah, I was really chuffed with the 1 point in Belgium, and yeah.
It's always nice. I feel like the only way I'd manage to get that point is if only 11 cars finished and I was in 11th. Otherwise, I'd just definitely be on null point at the end of the season. It looks like Ollie's just doing a bit of a second warm-up lap, actually, maybe just to get a bit more temperature in his tyres. A lot of the drivers out, well, 2 drivers, sorry, out on track. A lot of the drivers still in the pit lane. So as we keep J. Luke on the screen, we'll go through the calendar this season. 10 races, 10 weeks, no breaks. Holland, France, Belgium, Monaco, Austria, America, Canada, Australia, Great Britain, and then ending at the other new circuit at Vietnam. Any of those circuits you're particularly looking forward to, or any that you're particularly dreading? Because I think I can guess maybe 1 or 2 that you'd be dreading. Tonight,
next week, final one. No, thank you. But we'll go there anyway. But I'm just not looking forward to too much for there. I've got a theme with Vietnam and France is I keep getting lost. But there are some good tracks there, so it's something number one on.
Yeah, I have done a test.
To see that on the calendar.
I have done a test with some people before, just sending them around France and saying, right, brake for the Mistral chicane and see if you know where it is, because quite often I forget where it is as well, and I've raced on there a few times now. So J. Luke invalidated his lap, so he will not be improving anymore. We have got someone else heading out onto circuit though, Scopefielder on an out lap, 5th position at this moment in time. 4 tenths off of pole position, a quarter of a second ahead of 12. That is how close it's looking in that midfield at this moment in time. It's going to be incredibly interesting how this qualifying goes and how the rest of the season really goes for a lot of these drivers. Loads of different circuits. We said Austria all about straight line speed, Monaco, Vietnam, street circuits, very tight and twisty, so you need to be careful out there. Good to see a lot of drivers though. They were really interested obviously just to get their team into tonight, because I felt being a fresh circuit, it's a bit of a level playing field for everyone. It doesn't matter if this is your first season of league racing, chances are you're not going to have too much less experience than everyone else around this track.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing about having it first, is that everyone has an even sort of playing field and everyone is learning about the track as we go more through the sessions and that. I know we did it in our tier just now, but yeah, a lot of people coming out for their final runs now.
Yeah, so Scopefielder, he's
pretty sure they'll all make it, but
yeah, it's going to be pretty close for some of these. I think that racing point that is right at the back, I'm not sure which one that is. It is Ollie. He's going to have to fly around this circuit. Scopefielder, he's finding the problem of being the shortest permanent track on the calendar. He's got no space. He's got so much traffic ahead of him, obviously, so that's really compromised, I think, his end of his lap. Although he's getting a brilliant slipstream, he does actually move up into third place.
Quickly gets out of the way of everyone else. Nice.
Yeah, I think the only way you could get out of the way there is pretty much parking it on the side of the track. Lukey had disconnection problems, so he's in the pits. And in the team press conference, Jamie, the boss of the teams and prospect driver as well this season alongside Mac, he said he's happy to have Lukey and Jonas in this car because he knows the potential that they've got. And he's also happy with having Ivan in the Haas as well, because we know Ivan has a lot of experience, but unfortunately Ivan is missing tonight. So who's going to be the first person to set a lap? Well, the last person is going to be one of the racing points, which is going to be Ollie, and the first person to finish their qualifying session is going to be Kajman, as Sam has retired from the session. That looks like he must have gone off. Is that on the way into turn 7 by the looks of things?
Yeah. Yeah, he's broken his wing as well, so there's definitely, yeah, I think he's just flicked the wall, they just spun him around or something, unlucky.
Yeah, so
Don
not
didn't
an
improve position.
Yeah, not an ideal return for him. Down in 15th at the moment. We'll have to see how he does through the race, if he can find opportunities.
J-Lo very close to Bowden actually getting there. Aggressive line through the chicane.
Well, that's part of the game, getting us close to invalidating us not. I think it was Schnicksel who said you've got to be clean because there's a late safety car and that bunches everyone up together. These 3-second penalties could become absolutely crucial to deciding the order. J. Luke does not improve his lap time, unfortunately for him. Ollie M, though, that's a fantastic last lap from him in the pink Mercedes ahead of the black Mercedes. 108.889 puts him into third, but Kian on pole position.
Yeah. Less than 2 tenths between the top 7 and the top 3 are separated by 88 thousandths between them. This tier is going to be good if they can do this every week.
Yeah, when I was looking through the qualifying night times, the consistency was incredible, and you're seeing that again tonight. 14 drivers separated by a second, top 7 separated by 2 tenths of a second. It is so close indeed, but it is Kian on pole position. Dainstar, last season's precision runner-up, starting well in second. Ollie third, Janol fourth, Lawrence in fifth, and good job from Verheyen to say this is pretty much he's moved up a tier from last season after being in podium. Great job from him to get 6th position, so he could be a dark horse this season.
Yeah, he very much could be, but again it's early days, so we're not really sure what's going to happen. There's no pattern yet, but I'd definitely put him up there as a dark horse as well. Very promising.
Yes, this is going to be very close indeed. When the race gets underway, we'll be Kian on pole, Dainstar second, Ollie in third, and we'll have to see whether J. Luke's deleted message about the weather ends up coming true. Will we end up with a wet start to this race, which, as you've experienced already tonight, make things a lot more interesting, and around such a tight and twisty circuit makes it almost a certainty that we will end up with a safety car.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we didn't get one. There's a lot of tight, very limited space in certain places, so it would be well to not have a safety car, but especially if it might not even be 2 people having an accident, because there's just be one spinning off into the racing line and, you know, just triggering a safety car that way too, so very unknown at this point. Very limited data for all tiers, so we'll see.
Yeah, we will see indeed. So here's confirmation of the qualifying results then for round 1 in the precision tier. It is Kian who is fastest, Dainstar second, Ollie in third, less than a tenth of a second, separating them just over a tenth of a second off of pole position is Jamal in 4th place. Lawrence making it 2 Ferraris in the top 5, and that's not something we'll be seeing too much in the real F1 this season, I doubt. Verheyen in 6th, Schofield at 7th, Jonas, Luke and Lukey rounded out the top 10. Khalifa just outside in 11th, Ollie Flavel is 12th, Schnicksel on his one-up debut is 13th, Kajman 14th, Sam 15th, and Don de Boer in last place. And we have got confirmation from Schnicksel it's going to be a full wet race, so they still have to make 2 compulsory stops, even though the tyres can get towards the end. So this makes it a bit interesting with what the drivers go for, especially if there's a chance it could dry out towards the end. Do you take your 2 stops early, or do you leave one as late as possible in case the conditions do change?
Well, that's the $1 million question. There's elements to both that we toyed with earlier, so I can tell you from experience. I was trying to leave it as late as possible on the chance it might dry up, but realised it wasn't going to, so did the maths and did the stop late anyway. And of course it didn't matter because I binned it, but you know, there's a lot of decisions drivers have to make and stuff like that, and I think, judging by it, it's probably not going to dry up, but we'll see.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to get towards slick tyres anyway, but probably at least maybe to intermediates towards the end. We'll have to wait and see. Seems like Sam has left the session, which seems to be a common theme on F1 2020, that I say that about at least one driver in every commentary, but I'm not turning this stream into another Codemasters rant, so we'll get underway shortly. We'll see what tyres everyone is on. I'll be surprised if they're not all on the... Well, actually, it looks like intermediate tyres, so that's surprising because I thought it was raining a bit heavier than that. To be fair, the intermediates are a pretty decent tyre. They can pretty much do most weather conditions.
Yeah, you might think it's really, really heavy rain, but it's probably about the same as we had in Prospect. So it's not too surprising that they're all on inters. But it probably is a little heavier if anything, but it's not too bad right now, so we'll see as they all go round.
Yeah, you can see the advantage of being higher up the grid as well as we go behind some of these cars. Even at slow speeds, quite an amount of spray being kicked up by the cars. So one driver we won't have to worry about that is obviously Kian. He has a nice driver's view that you can see here. And if you do want to see another driver's view of racers, one of our Prospect tier drivers, Liam13, you can get his viewpoint on his Twitch channel, Liam13. Just search for that on Twitch and you will be able to see a driver's eye view from what were similar conditions to this. We can't really go on any form here because qualifying obviously being in the dry, maybe some of these drivers went for more dry qualifying setups and went for the glory in qualifying. We're soon going to find out.
Yeah, it's always worth taking a gamble in quali, see if you can adapt a slightly wet setup into straight line speed in the dry and see if you can carry that consistency in the race as well when conditions are worse. So we'll see.
Yeah, we will see indeed, and these bank corners can be extremely treacherous in the wet conditions. You can see that concrete wall on the outside could be very inviting for a few drivers in this race, so survival might be the name of the game, especially on the first lap. They're all eager to race. It's been a while, maybe for some of these, since they've done any league racing whatsoever, so we'll have to see how they go for the start of this race. Just waiting for Sam and Don to head up towards the back of the grid, and we will be underway for round 1 out of 10 here. Let's not forget the Prospect and Podium tiers have already happened, and you'll be able to see Pinnacle. That will be starting at 8:30. We're getting ready now for the lights to come on here in Holland to get the precision tier underway. And we are racing. It is a fairly good start from the Ferrari on pole position. You can see Danestar already going across just to cover the racing point of Ollie, who's going to try and go round the outside. In fact, Danestar's actually been able to send one up the inside of Kian, so they're going to be going side by side through turn 2. Who's going to come out in front? Is it going to be the racing point? Is it going to be the Red Bull? Is it going to be the Ferrari? And the Ferrari's still trying to hang on, so we're seeing a lot of side-by-side action already. We've got yellow flags, and I think that is Ollie, who despite having a really good start has dropped all the way to the back of the field, but Kian just about holding on. Danestar in 5th, Janel is 3rd position, and you can just see the spray already. Quite hard for these drivers to follow this close this early on in the race, but Kian, he held off that at the start. He'll be pretty happy with that, and it looks like everyone's got through fairly cleanly, as we now see the 2 racing points go side by side, and that is not what you want to be doing on lap 1 of race 1 to your teammate. That's not how you build into team relations. Ollie feels like he's a lot faster than Kajman. Now he's been able to go round the outside, so he's dropped back a long way at the start of this race. We have a lot, 11 places, the biggest loser, biggest winners, Don DeBoer and Ollie Flavel. Both McLarens having good starts to move up 3rd places, but it's Kian at the end of lap 1, and I think they'll all be glad to get through that lap cleanly.
Yeah, it's always a sigh of relief when you get to the start finish straight to start lap 2 and you've got all your wings and cars on you, and wheels on your car, so it's always positive that happens. You know, not everyone got through scot-free, as J. Luke, very early stop.
Yeah, J. Luke has got damage to the left-hand side of his front wing, so that is why he's coming into the pits. And Kian, coming out of the final corner, actually, getting very close to losing it altogether. So he's now dropped behind Danestar. Danestar obviously got an absolutely fantastic run out of that final corner, so he's now in the lead of this race. Janel's still in 3rd. Lawrence is in 4th. Verheyen seems to have dropped back all of a sudden as well in the Renault, because he had a pretty decent first lap. Can't remember him dropping 5 places, so last season's podium tier champion out of the points at the moment. We'll have to see how he recovers over the next few laps, and Ollie is looking extremely racy at the back of the field at the moment. He was very quick off the start line, had some incident which forced him to drop back. He's now trying to go around the outside of Don de Boer. No DRS, of course, in these conditions. That is Schnitzel travelling very slowly. Does he have any damage on his car? Not that I can see, but Schnitzel's dropped down the order. Williams down to 13.
Yeah, I've not seen any damage either, but I am checking on that one. Pit strategy comes up for me. It's okay, never mind. Aren't we? But
all looking okay at the moment as Janel right on the back of Kian at the moment. Now that Dainstar's gone away, he seems to be enjoying himself at this moment in time. They're all trying to take it nice and careful. Unsurprisingly, a lot of drivers running, not really going for the richer fuel mixtures because they don't want that extra power coming out of the corners. So this could be very interesting indeed. We have another yellow flag. Who was that for? I wonder. Maybe the McLaren of Don DeBoer?
I think it was Don, yeah. I saw the yellow flag about where he was. So yeah, he's still going a bit slowly. I think he may have damage. I'm not sure. I'm checking on that.
Someone who's definitely got damage is Lukey, missing a lot of his front wing. Big shunt into the wall, pretty much eliminated that left-hand side of the front wing, and you can just see how hard it is. So the Alfa Romeo going off at turn 6. He's got about half the lap to still do, and a lot of downforce needed around this circuit, especially in the wet. He is really suffering. He will drop to the back of the field. Dainstar, though, as we're heading on to lap 4, he's had an absolutely fantastic start to this race at the moment. Now that he's got clear of Kian, he's got that gap up to 2 seconds, and Janel might be feeling as though he's just being held back slightly here. You can see overtake mode open on that Mercedes. Which way is he going to go? Too far behind to go for a lunge down the inside. And a few drivers have said dirty air is a bigger factor on this game, especially when you've got a high downforce setup, especially when it's as tough to overtake as it is around this circuit. Could be pretty challenging for Janel to get ahead of the Ferrari.
Yeah, it could be challenging, but all you need is a little bit of mistake of the guy in front, and or he's in a wall somewhere. I think he's lost it. Final corner, perhaps. Maybe.
I think he might have just pulled into the pit lane and retired, actually. So lost one driver from this race on the board. It doesn't seem like Sam has actually got back in. It seems like he's still under AI control. So effectively, with 2 drivers down here, J. Luke's back into pits for his second pit stop. He doesn't need to pit again officially, according to the rules, but I can't see him managing to keep his tyres on. When you consider,
there's no way his tyres can go on.
Yeah, the front left takes an absolute hammering around here. Just looking at Dainstar's, his is on 15%, the most worn of the front tyres. So you've got to say, even by about lap, well, they're going to pit in around about lap 12 or 13, I think, a third of the way through the race. You might as well have good use out of these intermediate tyres. So I think that would make the most sense. As Dainstar sets the fastest lap again, he's in a different lead. It's like he's going around with completely different tyres to everyone else. He was a second a lap faster than Kian last time around.
Yeah, I've noticed that the gap there, it is incredible the amount of pace you can find this early on. Good job, man. Let's see what else he can do.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be trying to build up as much of a gap as possible, because you can see, once he gets stuck in traffic, it is incredibly difficult. Both Ferraris with a bit of a queue behind them at this moment in time. We've got Lawrence, Jonas, Ollie Falal, Khalifa, Vahinen and Ollie not too far behind, so Ollie's trying to work his way up. He's back into the points after starting way up in 3rd position. Here's a view from Jonas, and when you're stuck in that spray, it is really difficult. You almost want to get out of it so you can see where you're going, but then obviously you lose the toe from everyone else. So being in free air like Dainstar, maybe that's just a factor. He's not got anyone stuck behind it. He's not got anyone just in front of him who's causing any spray for him. He just knows he's got a bit of a gap and can just enjoy himself at this moment in time.
Yeah, it's always better to be in free air, but I was experimenting trying to see if I could cool the tyres down, but you can't really, because as you say, you'll lose the toe to the car in front, or the cars behind can get a better exit from corners and overtake you. So it's really difficult to know how to deal with it, but I'm sure these guys will find a way. And it's a very good battle so far. The train is getting bigger.
There it is. You can see now Vahinen and Ollie are right on this train, and Ollie Flavel actually, he looks the most likely maybe to get ahead of Jonas. He's been looking on the inside at a few corners, even at the penultimate corner, which turn 13 is not one I would have expected to see many overtaking moves on, but he put his nose down the inside. Not the best exit through 3, so will Khalifa be able to get close, and just struggling through this flat out section. Really hard to overtake on all them corners. If you're not ahead on the exit of turn 3, pretty much got to follow these guys until turn 9 at the earliest, more likely turn 11 to be honest, before you've got another easy overtaking opportunity. Is J. Luke fastest lap of the race, obviously on slightly fresher intermediate tyres than everyone else after his 2 stops. Only himself and Lukey have stopped at the moment, so it's not a good day for Luke's coming into the pit lane. It's a good job that I'm not the only Luke who seems to struggle in these wet conditions, and you can just see how much Khalifa closes up on the back of everyone at the moment. That concertina effect, but Lawrence doing a fantastic job of holding these guys back, and same with Kian up ahead. That gap's now 4 seconds to Dainstar, but to be fair, it's not like Scope Fielder's really catching them up either, so I think it's more Dainstar setting an extremely fast pace as Khalifa comes into the pits. He's trying something different. He's had enough of being stuck in a queue.
Yeah, he's trying for a undercut. Fair enough. As I say, there's no damage reported, so that's a tactical decision. Could pay off for him. He's coming out in P11, so yeah.
Kajman coming in as well, and I think he did actually have some damage to his front wing, so that is why he's coming to the pit. So a lot of drivers are struggling. Unfortunately, we've just had news from Don De Boer. It was a brake pedal. His brake pedal has broken, so understandably had no choice but to retire from the race. Not how you want to be starting your one-up career at this moment in time. So Kajman, you just see, has come out just ahead of Lukey and J. Luke, so down in 12th position for him at this moment in time, as Jana locks up ever so slightly behind Kian at this moment in time. He'll be wanting to get past sooner, I think, rather than later. Just looking at the fuel management, because we are able to see this on Taz at the moment. Some of these drivers seem to be running with a couple of laps extra of fuel, which is always nice, but looking at Ollie Flavel and Dainstar, they're the main ones who pick out at the moment, as actually just will hold that thought for a second, as Janel is a lot closer than he's been before to Kian, goes down the inside, a bit of wheel banging from the pair of them. We know Kian's been able to hold it on the outside of someone earlier, but Janel down the inside, he'll be relieved to do that. But you can see on Dainstar's car, he just has that yellow fuel mark at the moment, which of course means he's using too much fuel. If he doesn't slow down, he will run out of fuel, but I think it's fair to say he'll be worried more about that at the end of the race than he would now. Now he's just concentrating on building a big gap at the front of the field.
Yeah, he's not in the negative by much. It's like less than a quarter of a lap, so he'll be fine for that. He can afford to turn it down, and as he does that, he seems to be doing that. And a couple of people pitted back there. Ollie was one of them, I think, and Schnicksel the other one. Jumps in just for tyres, and I think we'll see some more very shortly as well.
Yeah, so maybe they are struggling a bit with tyre management in this pace that they're setting in the wet at the moment. So you can see Janel, he was definitely being held up by Kian. Maybe Kian starting to struggle. Doesn't look as though he's actually got too much tyre wear. Thankfully the TELS system, which if you want to get to use that for your own league, get in contact with IGKMs. Thankfully TELS is a bit more accurate than AWS. It's not like he's really wearing out his tyres at the moment. A scope fielder, he dives into the pit, so he clearly doesn't want to get held up either. Got to say, these are a couple of laps earlier than I would have expected. I'd have expected Mofa drivers to just try and do 12-12-12 stints if possible.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping to do, but early safety cars changed that, and I'm sure tactical reasons people are changing up early now, just like we saw with Khalifa trying to get the undercut. How does that work for him? We'll have a look. As the drivers, who was he behind when he went in? Sorry, forgot.
He was behind Ollie. Well, I know it was around Ollie on the track. I can't quite remember if he was behind. I think he was ever so slightly, and you can see 2 seconds. He
was, yeah. He's definitely made the undercut work then. So that's why. There you go. He's done that, and now it's up to the leaders when they pit. I suppose they could go 12-12-12, but or 12-12 or whatever it is they want to do.
We will have to see. Jonas, he's still obviously stuck behind Lovren, so he'll be losing a lot of time at this moment, and it wouldn't be too surprising, I think, to see Kian and Janil maybe coming soon, now that Scope Fielder, he'd suddenly picked up the pace before his pit stop. Now that he's obviously coming to the pits, we'll have to see what he can do. And yeah, Khalifa and Ollie Flavel going purple at various points, so you can see these fresh tyres do have the pace at the moment in time. So we'll have to see. And yeah, there we go. Janel is into the pits. Fresh set of intermediate tyres will be going on him. On board with Schofield. I'll be surprised if Scope manages to get ahead of him, but he'll definitely catch up a lot closer than he did earlier. Verheyen in the pits as well, so he's going to drop a long way down the order, and you can see Janel has just managed to stay ahead of Schofield, but it is slightly closer than it was earlier on, but he has, thankfully for him, got some free air, and he'll be hoping now that Jonas and Lawrence pick before long, because he's not too far off the back of that queue.
Yeah, they will probably come in the next couple of laps, as everyone else seems to be. You've got the first 4 there haven't pitted yet. Everyone else has been in at least once. Several people have had about 400 stops because their wings keep breaking. So we'll see, but I'm sure Dainstar will probably just pit when everyone else does.
Yeah, he doesn't have to worry too much at the moment. Had a bit of time to defend from the undercut, so we'll have to see if he decides to pick this lap, or maybe go a slightly bit longer than indeed he is coming in this lap. So Dainstar in at the end of lap 10 for his first scheduled stop. Luke has actually done, Luke down in 14th, he's actually done 3 pit stops already, so it's not gone to plan for him. Kian in as well. He gets a penalty for speeding in the pit lane as Lawrence nearly loses it. Coming out of the final corner, I just caught the end of that, and that might give Jonas the chance he needs to go down the inside on the Ferrari, on the run into turn 1. Lawrence is holding off very well. Jonas just gets a bit of wheel spin, and I think that might have been an opportunity there. We'll have to see if he can hold it on the inside for 2. That'll give him the outside for 3, and that is big contact between the 2 of them.
And in the meantime, Khalifa, I don't know if you know, he's went fastest so far, fastest of the race there. So he's definitely made that undercut work for him.
Yeah, Khalifa, now that he's in free air, like you said, fastest lap of the race with a 1:20.3, so he's currently on to get that bonus point, and J-Luke currently on to get the one for outside the top 10, and now this queue, all of a sudden, Janel has been held up by these guys. I'm surprised Jonas didn't actually get past then, if I'm being perfectly honest. I thought he'd have managed to make his way through. It was quite a big hit between the 2 of them, so surprised they haven't got any damage on their car, but Janel's got so much extra grip, you can see, just straight past Jonas. I think even if Jonas wanted to defend, there's nothing he'd be able to do, so surely it's not going to be long before we see Lawrence and Jonas coming to the pits, as they are the only 2 yet to pit. And of course Lawrence had to wait for his teammate, so that's sometimes a bit of an issue. Some of these drivers have been talking about if they've got any expectations between themselves and their teammate, and the general theme seems to be it's too early in the season, we'll see what the pace is like after a couple of races.
Yeah, Lawrence didn't pit there, which might well have wanted to, but I don't know, maybe he's just in the zone and thought, you know what, okay, keep going. But Jonas didn't go in either, so
yeah, that's interesting. They're going to be losing quite a lot of time, you'd imagine, to everyone around them at this point in the race, so this could really drop them a long way down. I mean, they were battling with Khalifa and both Ollies, and just looking at the gaps at the moment, if it gets gaps to the leader up, Khalifa's only 5 seconds off the back of Jonas, so it is a short pit lane here in Zandvoort. It's not that short, so Jonas and Lawrence will be dropping a long way down the field. Dainstar, though, with that lead of the race at the moment, 5.3 seconds, he can just afford to take it a bit easier at the moment, because we didn't really get to see what Jonas could do, as J-Luke going the wrong way down the pit straight. Big damage to his front wing, and this looks like pit stop number 4 for the Haas driver. Although I'm surprised he hasn't come in.
Well, maybe he was too far along the straight to go in, I don't know. Maybe he tried, but we'll see. I mean, it's not major damage, but yeah, it'll impact him enough. As you see there, he has to lift very, very closely as Lawrence is in. Yellow flag. I don't know what that was for. Probably just Jonas and Lawrence going in.
Yeah, Lawrence got himself a speeding penalty in the pit lane, so that's both Ferraris then. 5-second penalty they'll be serving at their next pit stop. Jonas actually changing his front wing, so I wonder if he got a bit of damage there. I think he did, right?
Yeah,
he was coming into the pit lane.
Oh, yes. Yeah, must have tapped the wall on the way in.
Interesting indeed, because we've seen drivers tap the wall on the outside, so interesting to see that he's obviously maybe tapped it on the inside, but look at what that front wing change and staying out longer has done to him. 20 seconds behind Khalifa. He's got much fresher tyres now and will obviously be in much better shape towards the end of the race, but it's going to be a big task. With 24 laps to go, a third of the way through this race we are. He's down in 11th. Both Alfa Romeos out of the points. In the lead, Dainstar you can just hear as he's going through the gears, being very careful at the moment, short shifting, saves a bit of fuel, and obviously saves the tyres and makes sure you've got enough traction in these wet conditions.
Yeah, short shift and enough traction in these conditions is definitely the way to go. There you go, in general 120.0, fastest lap of the race. Exit from Khalifa.
Yeah, he's probably not bothered too much about saving his tyres at the moment. He just wants to obviously catch up to Dainstar as much as he possibly can. Schofield is in third. Khalifa, really the big winner out that pit stop period, in fourth, although he's got Kian not too far behind him. Both Ollies moving up 6th and 7th. Verheyen in 8th. Lomans down to 9th. Schnitzel in 10th despite that spin earlier on, so he seems to have recovered well from that in the Williams at the moment. Williams of course getting taken over at the moment as he goes a bit wide through turn 3, but on the game he's doing alright. So Williams at the moment in 10th position. Might be interested to see how Kian does in this stint. He's just behind Khalifa at the moment because he seemed to struggle in the first stint, but now that he's on a lot fresher tyres than Khalifa up ahead, this might bode well for him and a few of the others who pitted later in the race.
Yeah, it could do, but Dainstar's responding to that fastest lap by the guy behind, who's on an absolute purple lap right now, so we'll see if he can go even quicker, which he will do, no doubt. There you go. 19.8.
1:19.8. He's I think he got a message maybe from Jeff on that lap that Jamal had started closing slightly and thought we're not having any of that. So 1:19.8. You'd expect them to be a few seconds slower still than the drag times, obviously, but also the fuel does have a bit of a factor. So the times are pretty competitive, I must say. Only about 10 seconds off we saw in qualifying, about 11 seconds. So not too bad considering the conditions, and half a tank of fuel, plus not exactly the freshest intermediate tyres for a lot of these guys at the front of the field. So they are doing a good job. What we do have, though, a battle developing. 7th and 8th position, Verheyen and Ollie qualified, well, quite away from each other. Ollie qualifying up in 3rd, Verheyen in 6th. So they both dropped places, but both will be looking for good performances. In fact, I think it was Verheyen who said that he was hoping anywhere in the top 10, really. He just wants consistency, so he must be feeling pretty good with how he's doing so far.
Yeah, definitely something that he learned in the very early stages of last season as well, was consistency. He got him, I think, 3 wins out of 3 races, so that definitely set the benchmark for his season. And yeah, he's finding it a little bit more difficult in these conditions, but then who isn't? It's tricky. Can't emphasise that enough.
Yeah, it's tricky indeed. You found that out earlier as well. There's quite a few others where I think it was 10 finishers when I checked, well, 10 people in it with a couple of laps to go. So they're doing a pretty good job, you've got to say, to still have only one proper retirement, because Sam's obviously an AI car. That's really good going to say we've had these conditions and we're nearly halfway through the race.
Yeah, I'm not going to say what I was going to say because I don't want to jinx anything, but yeah, definitely very well done. And Dainstar's purple again, is he? In sector 1 there, I think, on the timing screen. He's letting them up again.
Yeah, Dainstar's just absolutely loving life at the moment in these intermediate tyres. He's just showing what he can do, opening the taps ever so slightly just to extend that gap. He's catching up to J-Luke at the moment to lap the Haas, who is obviously still going around and still on at the moment provisionally for 1 point if he gets to the end of the race. And when these tyres start wearing out a bit more towards the end and maybe they get a bit light on fuel and they think about pushing a bit harder, that could see maybe a bit more action. But Luke sensibly just getting well out of the way there. So Dainstar still ahead at this moment in time as we start lap 17, 5 seconds ahead of Janov, who himself is 5 seconds ahead of Schofield. Khalifa is still extending ever so slightly over Kian. Ollie Flavel short of driving around on his own at the moment, whereas Ollie M got Abraham behind him, and you'd expect Verheyen He might go for the undercut again. We saw a few others do it last time around. He might do it as Lawrence is in. Why is Lawrence coming in on lap after 3 laps on those tyres? Serves his 5-second penalty and a front wing change.
Yeah. It's not going to plan for him tonight so far, is it?
No, it's not. I thought, to be honest, he might have a decent chance by just going a bit longer, because some of these guys are going to have to do really long stints towards the end, and it doesn't look like the tyres enjoy that whatsoever. But now that he's pitted for that front wing damage, surely he's going to have to pit again to have any pace towards the end. His tyres will just about do 19 laps, but you'll be struggling, and he gets a 5-second penalty for crossing the pit lane exit line. And that's not something we talked about, because that was mentioned by the stewards. It's a tricky pit exit here.
It is a bit harsh sometimes to give that, because it's sort of a bang right-hander as well, so that's a little difficult, especially in these conditions. You could easily just skid over it. It's unfortunate, but he'll just have to get on with it and see what he can salvage from the rest of his evening.
Yeah, still needs to keep going, because, as Murray Walker said, anything can happen in Formula 1, and it usually does.
Yes. So many great quotes from such a great man.
Gives me hope that maybe I'm not too old to be doing this, and I just need to wait another 30 years, and who knows, maybe a door will open for me somewhere. The driver who's hoping that a door will open at the moment is Lukey. He is within a second of Kajman on older tyres, so after pitting early on because of damage, he's actually showing decent pace on those tyres. He's done 13 laps on them, probably trying to stretch it out, so he only obviously has to do the 2 stops. Don't want to do any more than that, but this is promising for some of those who pitted early in the first stint, that once the fuel wears down, these intermediates will be able to go longer and still have a fairly respectable pace.
Yeah, definitely promising. And you say he's the gaps are very deceiving. They look miles away, but he's only like just over a second. It's very confusing sometimes. You think there's a guy nowhere near, and then the next thing you look in your mirrors and he's right beside you, like, where did he come from? What is happening?
Yeah, it'd be even more so, obviously, if we had DRS, because they would have 2 chances to use it, but looking at the weather conditions, I don't think that's going to be a worry for anyone in this race. But one slight mistake from Kajman, I'm sure that will be Lukey all over the back of him as well. Further up the field, Verheinen's dropped slightly back from Ollie. Final points position though, Stixel starting maybe to find himself under slightly bit more pressure. Jonas Ulbricht did well in qualifying. No, he's got pace, went a long time in the first stint. He's now reaping the benefits from that with fresher intermediate tyres, and he aims to close up to Stixel. So both Alfa Romeos getting themselves in battles at the moment. Got to say as well, for a precision tier, back in the precision tier, because he was promoted up to that earlier on in F1 2019 before dropping down to podium. Again, respectable job so far from Jonas. He's doing pretty well, and this is definitely going to be a close tier in the midfield this season. Dainstar and Janel looking pretty good in the race so far, but it's in the wet, it's only one race, many different tracks. There's a lot of drivers who could get some good results this season.
Yeah, you've definitely seen the makings of a solid season here. With these conditions, who knows what's going to happen if it was a dry race. You don't know, but I'm hoping for more of the same every week. This is brilliant.
Yeah, I think it was podium last year, wasn't it? Where we had about 5 or 6 wet races in a row. It was just a crazy run of weather.
Yeah, it certainly was. I think 7 of the first 8 were rain affected in some way, and then Belgium happened where we had a reset and there was no rain. So thanks for that.
Reset definitely saving you weather-wise then. So they're all still driving around nice and happily at the moment. All seems to be going fairly calm all of a sudden. I feel like it's the calm before the storm of the second pit stops, which may not be too far away for some of these guys. But still in the lead at the moment. Dainstar's not really put a foot wrong. Touch wood. Not really put a foot wrong so far, but a lot of the drivers as well keeping it clean. We haven't seen anyone pick up a single 3-second time penalty yet, which is a strange thing to say. I imagine part of that is because there's a lot of close walls here, and we haven't really got much tarmac runoff area. A lot of places, if you put 4 wheels over the white line, you're on the grass, and even more so in wet conditions, that's probably leading to a big accident.
Yeah, definitely. I think they're taking it very cautiously around some of these corners in these conditions, specifically. But yeah, there's definitely time to be lost in penalties in a completely dry race. But they're just going nowhere near the lines in these conditions.
Yeah, it's the wisest thing to do. I think Formula 1 do usually use a special grippy paint, but I imagine maybe it's not quite like black ice, maybe it's just normal ice when you're trying to put 900 plus brake horsepower down on these Pirelli tyres. They do have incredible levels of grip, downforce and power now from the hybrid engines. Deanstar then still looking nice and serene at the moment, as there we go, it was bound to happen, and we said no one's got one. Luke here in his quest to catch up to Catchman gets himself a penalty, so does Catchman. I think that was just for the pit entry glitch, to be fair, and he now comes into the pit lane for his second and presumably final pit stop of the race.
Yeah, you would hope it's his final stop. Doesn't have to pit again. But with these conditions, you never know what piece of bodywork's going to go, nah, I'm not going to be attached to this car anymore. Let's hope that doesn't happen. I'll feel bad if it does now. But
hopefully, yeah, hopefully.
Bit of a moment for Jarno there.
Jarno pushing extremely hard.
Yeah.
So Jarno still is
still in that. Oh, there we go.
Jarno's teammate coming in, then Khalifa into the pits. He just picks up a 3-second time penalty, so I think they are, once the tyres start wearing out, they are finding it a bit more tricky to keep it between the white lines, and he is going to drop out ahead of Verheyen just because Verheyen has come into the pit. So that's actually worked out pretty well, because he might have been behind the Renault there, and we've seen already it's difficult to pass. Just about keeps 2 wheels on the inside of that white line, so doesn't have to worry about that. But Verheyen in the pits, he's coming out in 9th place. Stixel's done his final stop of the race as well, so that frees Lukey up, who also comes into the pit. So a lot of the midfield deciding to come in, those at the front staying out, and that makes sense seeing as it was the midfield who came in earlier on. And I think J Luke's just had a slight excursion off track as well, but no damage done for him.
No, he's lucky to not have any damage there, but yeah, Khalifa is in free air again, and he'll love that. As there's a yellow through sector 2, I'm not really thinking it's just someone getting out of the way, is it? Maybe just make the leading fly or something.
Yeah, I think it's Luke just getting out of the way, but Khalifa's absolutely flying, as you would expect, on fresh tyres at this moment in time. Fastest person of anyone in the second sector. Maybe that is why we're seeing Scopefielder come into the pits. He doesn't want to be a victim of the undercut. He wants to get himself a podium for AlphaTauri on his comeback to One Hub Racing. It's going to be close, but he's just about going to have it. But obviously Khalifa's tyres are going to be nice and warmed up, so this might not be the easiest first lap. He has got a bit of a gap, thankfully for him. Olif Lavelle and Kian also coming into the pit. Scopefielder just behind Ollie, so I'm sure Khalifa's hoping that the pink Mercedes does him a bit of a favour, and maybe, probably unintentionally of course, just holds up Scopefielder ever so slightly here, because if it does, there's a chance of a double podium for the Mercedes boys.
Yeah, a very big chance, and you saw earlier what Khalifa can do in clean air, so yeah, he'll definitely be pushing for that, as he's purple again through sector 1 there. He's definitely enjoying these conditions right now on these tyres with the heat he's got in them, but yeah, this race is nowhere near over. A lot could still happen, but this is sensational stuff in the first round of this season.
Yeah, fantastic driving standards from everyone. Not really seen any incidents. Have all kept it relatively clean, especially around what is such a tricky circuit. You can see Scopefielder still behind Olive at this moment in time, and I'm sure he's hoping that this racing point dives off towards the pit lane this time around, and indeed he does. So Ollie's into the pits from 3rd place. Deanstar has been in and back out again. Khalifa smashing the fastest lap of the race by 4/10 of a second. Exactly what you'd expect, obviously, on the fresher tyres, and that has got him to within a second of Scopefielder. So this probably puts Kian, he's a long way down the order. He's down in 6th place now after he's been in as well for his stops, and you can see there Jonas and Janel, the only drivers apart from Sam, who is still, unfortunately for him, an AI car. They're the only drivers yet to make their second stop. So Janel's clearly going for the fast and hard towards the end of this race. He's just going to push those intermediates to within an inch of their life at the end to try and close that gap up to Danestar.
Yeah, Eva Hannon, well, I call it Eva Hannon, but that's probably not quite right, but you know what I mean. Is his fastest sector 3 there by 94 thousandths with a 23.883. So yeah, there's a lot of battles up and down this field, and this is one of the races of the week, I think.
Yes, has been some good battling so far. So we now see Janel is into the pits. That obviously promotes Danestar back into the lead of this race. It'll be interesting to see what the gap is. You'd expect it to have grown quite a bit actually over the 5 seconds that it was. And it is just going to pop only a tiny bit over that. Only about 5.5 seconds. So Janel not doing too bad on the older intermediate tyres. And his teammate is now right behind Scopefielder. All of a sudden, I think this is going to be a very interesting battle towards the end of the race as Jonas comes in, meaning everyone has done their compulsory stops. Jonas, he'll be fighting hard towards the end. Schofield and Khalifa can just afford to go for it a bit more. Even if he makes a slight mistake, he's got 10 seconds back to the car behind, 7 seconds when you take penalties into account. Where do you think is going to be the best chance for him to overtake? Into turn 1 or anywhere else?
It's probably not ideal to drive into turn 1, but if it's the last lap you're going to try. But right here could be a good example. Like if it's a little bit wider in front of Schofield, then Khalifa can just stop in the scene and go down the inside there. I wouldn't try it into the chicane in the wet, but in the dry it's probably possible to do that. But he's getting closer all the time. Maybe just get a better exit and just do him into turn 1. Potentially just hold the inside line. But there's a few spaces for him as Danestar goes quickest again, 19.274. Oof.
Danestar showing no signs of holding up. We'll have to see how Janel does on his lap. You can see Khalifa's gaining ever so slightly, but it's not a long enough straight to go for a move down into turn 1. So turn 11, like you said, it's a good overtaking opportunity in the drive when you've got DRS. Probably not so much in the wet, so imagination might be needed from the Bahraini driver here if he wants to get ahead of Scopefielder and get on the podium. Further down the back of the field, Kian seems to have spent a lot of this race with drivers closing up to the back of him or behind him. He's now got Ollie behind him for that 6th and 7th place at the moment. Ollie recovering in the racing point after a difficult start to the race. We've just seen Lawrence pick up another penalty as well, so he might actually drop quite a bit down the order towards the end. And the dirty air there, you can just see Ollie getting quite a bit of understeer as he's flying his way through turn 6, and that's another tricky part of this track. A lot of high downforce corners, really difficult to follow the car ahead of you.
Yeah, it's really difficult at the best of times, but it's especially difficult in these conditions. You just need to find a medium ground so you can put the pressure on but not be so close as that it affects your car's handling.
As Janel has absolutely smashed the fastest lap out of the window, 6/10 quicker than what Danestar had done before. He's got that gap down to 4.2 seconds. This is an incredible job by him. It's probably a good job as well that everyone has kept it clean. We've seen a few drivers pick up penalties, but we'll talk about the slight change one has made to the penalty system while things have quietened down ever so slightly after the pit stops. There is still the normal 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds penalty. So if a tier gets a reputation for being a bit dirty, to gently remind them not to race like touring cars and that these F1 cars are a bit fragile, all penalties can be doubled for the rest of the season. So you could see drivers picking up 30 and 40 second penalties, but we mentioned this earlier, Matt, to say it's been a wet race, it's been a fantastic standard of driving so far.
Yeah, very good awareness on all parts here as well, but yeah, I'm very pleased with what I've seen so far. And as I said earlier, if it's going to be like this every week, then sign me up right now. This is brilliant.
Yeah, this is great. One driver who's finding it great who couldn't make it tonight is Jimbo Manzi. Hope you're enjoying watching. I mean, he's obviously enjoying Danestar being P1 at the moment. Gap seems to have stabilised at 4.2 seconds on that lap. So with 9 laps to go, this is going to be tough for Janel to gain. It's slightly low on the fuel as well, only by a very small margin. Danestar and Janel really similar fuel loads here at the moment, so this is going to be close towards the end of the race. Maybe if Janel can pull out another lap like he has done the lap before, he's looking very good indeed, as I think Danestar was still 198.2, so Jano, only driver in the 118s at this moment in time, so interesting for him. Khalifa has dropped back ever so slightly from Schofielder, but Ollie right on the back of Kian. You feel like Ollie's got a lot of pace to maybe even catch up to the other Ollie if he can just get ahead of the Ferrari, who's done a great defending job, it must be said, all the base.
Yeah, he's also got fuel in hand as well as Ollie, so I'd expect him to get the move done pretty soon, as he's the second healthiest car on fuel. The other one is Lukey in P12, who has more fuel, but yeah, very good fuel management from these guys. Sensational stuff.
Yeah, it is of course a factor of modern Formula 1 has been for a while since the refuelling was banned, and especially since for modern hybrid engines. Do you put more fuel in knowing you can push harder but you'll be heavier, or do you put less in and decide to save in the race? You've got to manage your fuel, you've got to manage your tyres, you've got to manage your ERS, and in this you've got to manage your right foot as well in these horrific conditions, especially when you're stuck behind another car. We can see some trying to get through the clouds, but we're almost certainly going to have a wet race all the way through, as Kian, not with the best exit there, coming out of turn 1. He's feeling the need to just go ever so slightly defensive, but it's not a long enough straight when you haven't got DRS, unless the car in front makes an absolute mess out of that final corner. Can't really get alongside, but Ollie definitely seems quicker. He could just maybe do with Kian making a slight mistake, and he'll be right on the back of him.
Yeah, I think he's trying to force him into a mistake there, which is not a bad tactic to use. This is a yellow in sector 3, but I think someone's just been slightly off the track there as it's cleared itself, so no dramas there. But yeah, this is definitely, he's turned the fuel mode up, I think, so he's definitely pushing and harrying the driver in front to try and make a mistake.
Yeah,
which is all good as Ashman hits again.
Yeah, Ollie's trying to force one driver to make a mistake in one racing point, and the other racing point, his teammate Cadman fortunately broke his front wing, so he's right down the back of the order at the moment. So Cadman has been lapped down in 13th, can still pick up a point maybe though, because he'll have very fresh tyres compared to everyone else, so that fastest lap point for outside the top 10 definitely still up for grabs. And that's another great thing about this rule, because there's always something up for grabs. We've only had one person retiring with a technical issue with his setup. No one's retired because of a long way back down the field or has made a mistake, as we've just seen another car, and that's J-Luke coming to the pit, so maybe he's thinking about that fastest lap as well, as Ollie keeps getting close into turn 1. You feel on the final lap he might just think, I've got nothing to lose, and go for that.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well. It's definitely cracking up to be a grandstand finish, as they say in the trade. I'm just checking the fastest laps outside the top 10. I believe that currently belongs to Lukey. Yeah, it does, 99. There'll be a point there for him if he can hold on to that.
Yeah, it will be. We've got another yellow flag. Not sure if that was just someone going slowly to get out of the way, or if there's been any damage for anyone. Well, J-Luke actually changed his wing, but he's just come out of the pit, so that won't be what the damage is for. So I think it might have been a car just having a slight moment through turn 1. One of the problems Ollie has got though is if Verheyen all of a sudden starts catching up, that might just hurry him up to try and get this move done a bit quicker. Only, well, just over 5 laps to go, 6 laps to go actually, as Danestar has crossed the finish line. If Verheyen catches up to Ollie, that might just give a bit more urgency to the racing point driver that could end up losing a place, never mind gaining one, unless he gets a hurry on.
Yep, you always want to try and put the hurry up to the guy in front at any time, but this is as good as time as any to do it. They're closing a few laps of a race. And yeah, definitely, I think he's definitely got the pace in him to push Kian all the way to the line.
Yeah, he might actually be physically pushing him towards the line by the end of this. He's looking very fast at the moment. Khalifa in a similar situation, although he's got the freedom of not having anyone behind him. He's right behind Schofielder, but importantly, Khalifa needs to finish 3 seconds ahead as Lawrence comes into the pit. So I think we are seeing a few drivers that realise they're not going to finish in the top 10 going for this fastest lap outside the top 10, which makes absolute perfect sense because it is still for now held by Lukey, but that could very change very quickly because J-Luke was going particularly quick last time around. Khalifa He's in a similar situation to Ollie. He's got to try and find some way to get past Scopefielder, but it's been a very professional performance, I must say, from Scopefielder. We've not talked about him a lot, just kept himself to himself in that first stint. All of a sudden, he's got no warnings whatsoever. He's in a great chance to get up into third place and get a podium on, obviously, the debut in the precision tier for the Alpha Tauri team.
Yeah, he's had a solid race, and he started in Devon as well, so he's definitely on board. There's a lot of people that have gained a lot of good places today, so yeah, many contenders for driver of the day, but we'll cover that later. Yeah, he's definitely had a solid race, and we haven't really spoke a lot about Scopefielder, but he's doing a very good job, which should be said.
Yeah, just keeping it clean, keeping himself out of trouble, and that's probably going to reward him with a podium at the moment. Janil has again decided to put a bit of a quick lap in. He's got that gap down to 3.5 seconds, but with 4 laps to go, he's running out of laps, I feel, which maybe we could... Can we write in and get this race extended by a lap or two? Because I feel like we could really see some fireworks towards the end. If that was the case, as you look back from Daystar, you can just see the Ferrari, and very slightly in the background before he goes around turn 1, see the Mercedes. Yellow flag there, I think that's J-Luke, who may have just been getting out of the way of a faster car. That's what caused that yellow flag. No damage for him, no drama for him, still going around in 14th, still on his quest to get the fastest lap, which you can see he does actually have at the moment. He's done a 198.5 as J-Luke, so it might be tough for anyone outside the top 10 to beat that at this moment in time. We go back to the battle between Kian, Ollie and Verheyen. You can see Verheyen's definitely closing up, as I thought for a second there Ollie was about to send one up the inside, but he backed out at the last moment.
Yeah, sometimes you get that feeling, dread like, not now, and he definitely took the discretionary move there and didn't do it, so that's a relief to see. They are still thinking out there, which is good.
Yeah, still thinking, and that is part of the battle sometimes. Your brain has got to be switched on. You've got to have that spare mental capacity to just think about strategy, think about all these extra things you've got to think about. And of course, concentrate on keeping the car facing in the right direction, which we've already seen, despite only having one retirement for a technical issue. There's been a few broken front wings around here. Hopefully they'll all be able to keep it on track though for the final 2.5 laps of this race. Another yellow flag, and again, that's just slow moving traffic. Slow moving traffic getting out of the way, but Daystar is losing a lot of time all of a sudden. It's now down to less than 3 seconds. An extra lap or two, he might find himself getting in trouble. And like Jimbo Manzi said, there's enough laps in this race. We don't need any more. I think Daystar would agree with that at the moment. Janel's been incredible in this final stint.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's definitely not over yet. I said that earlier, but keep your eyes peeled, because this is going to the final corner, I think. But I've noticed Ivan's got a little bit of damage, so he's probably not going to be able to overtake Ollie in the way that he wanted to, but he'll still be thereabouts for any mistakes, but he's just got to try and nurse it home now, unfortunately for him. But yeah, we're still about to see some fireworks at the end.
Yeah, definitely. Indeed we are. We always love a bit of action here to start off the season, and we have seen plenty of that. Stixel having a bit of a lonelier race at the moment in 10th position, trying to catch up to Jonas Ulbricht, but again, 3.5 seconds, 3 laps to go. Probably just running out of laps. Gap at the lead of the race is down to 2.5 seconds, and as soon as Janel starts seeing Daystar clearer and clearer, it's like the rabbit in the headlights. He'll be feeling pretty good maybe about his chances. One slight mistake from Daystar, he's led from the end of lap 1 pretty much, apart from pit stop periods. It's been a great race from him, but you've got to say, from the pace that Janel's shown, maybe if he'd been able to get past Kian a lap or two before, we could have really had a fantastic battle between these two out on track for the entire race.
Oh, that would have been brilliant to see. But I think this is definitely an over, because Daystar has less fuel but more ERS to use. So this is fascinating stuff.
Yeah, I was about to say maybe he's just saving his ERS slightly in case Janel does all of a sudden close up to the back of him, but you can see he was using a bit on that straight there. He's about to start the final lap of this race, lap 36 out of 36, and he's going to have a 2.2 second lead across the line, and no penalties for these guys to worry about. So looks like being a pretty decent race from these guys. Schofielder has managed to get away from Khalifa ever so slightly. He's got that gap up to 1.5 seconds at the moment, so he's looking good for third place. Ollie still all over the back of Kian is Ollie M. Ollie Flavel having another driver who's just had a consistent but lonely race, as Ollie locks up slightly going into the chicane and gets very close to the back of Kian, and I think we're about to see maybe the final chance he's going to have of getting ahead of that Ferrari. Both keeping it clean through turn 13, as long as no one runs wide here, and you can see Kian taking a slightly higher line. Ollie's actually got a fantastic run. This might be it. This might be the chance here. Can he go all the way around the outside at turn 1? This will be a brave move. He's gone for it. I think there was a slight bit of wheel banging between the two of them there. Kian just about stays ahead. He said he was going to go for it on the final lap.
Yeah, and he did. But I think he might have one more lunge in him. There you go, Dainstar's gap is 2 seconds now. I think he's probably done enough.
Yes, Dainstar round the penultimate corner, round turn 13. He's really controlled this race since getting ahead of Kian at the start. He's weaving towards the line. Dainstar wins round 1 here at the One Hub Precision tier. Janel, a great job in the final stint to get second place. It's going to be a third place on his return to One Hub for the Alpha Tauri team. Schofielder in third, Khalifa will be fourth, rounding off a great day for the Mercedes team. Ollie's not been able to have a go into the chicane, so it looks this is probably going to be it then for him, as long as Kian keeps it facing the right way through the final corner, and he has done. Khalifa, as we said, is in fourth. Ollie Flavel takes 5th position.
Oh no! Oh well, there you go. There's a position for Eva Hannon, right? You probably wouldn't expect that.
Oh.
Oh yeah, I think he's just a little bit greedy on the throttle and just ever so slightly, just maybe a switching too early. He's just that's unlucky. But he managed to finish still, so that's Jonas and P9 there.
Yeah, that very really could have been game over for Ollie. He had a fantastic 35.5 laps of this race. It's just a shame about whatever happened to him in the first quarter and what's happened to him around the final corner. The game's given driver of the day to Khalifa, and you'll be able to find out who our choices are very shortly, as you'll be able to hear the cogs whirring in our heads to pick them out and pick a question. But great job from Dainstar to get the win. Fantastic start to the season for Red Bull. They will be absolutely delighted with that, as we will see now the drivers on the podium. Dainstar with the win, Janel in second, Schofielder in third position. And I'm going to go over to you, Mac. Who is your choice for driver of the day, and what question would you like to ask them?
Well, it is new for me, so I feel the power and responsibility quite well. I'll use it wisely. There's a lot of contenders, I think, but I'm going to have to play it slightly safe, and I'm going to have to go for Schofielder today, driver of the day. And the question I'd ask him is, you just seem to be doing your own thing out there. Was it as easy as it looked, or is there anything you want to just work on for next time, or are you just happy with P3?
Well, I think he will be fairly happy with P3, but we'll find out about the rest of that. I'm going to go for second place man, pretty much just to do with his incredible pace towards the end of the race, and that is Janel. And my question to you is going to be about the first stint. If you'd have thought you'd have got past Kian maybe a lap or two earlier, would you have been able to challenge Dainstar for the win at the end of this race? So there's our nominations for driver of the day, Schofielder and Janel. You'll be able to see the votes for driver of the day on Saturday on the One Hub Twitter page. You'll have 2 days to vote on them, and you'll be able to see the questions on the One Hub forum as well. And Mac, absolutely fantastic race, really. Brilliant drive from a lot of drivers. Like you said, there was a lot of contenders. Khalifa and Ollie Flavel both gaining multiple places. Kian, he may have lost 5 places, but fantastic defensive job at the start on Janel, and as we saw for the entire end of the race as well on Ollie M. So many drivers who I think will be pleased with that performance, especially in the tricky conditions.
Oh yeah, they definitely will be. I think you're going to have a lobby of people that usually you get some disappointed, but I don't think there's going to be many disappointed people at the end of that race. Maybe those that finished 11th and 12th and didn't quite get fastest lap outside top 10. But other than that, I can't think of many people that would have any maybe real complaints or disappointment about their race. So yeah, great job everyone. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, especially in the tricky conditions. I mean, the saying is when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And talking of the going gets tough, there's going to be a chance for a lot of drivers, isn't there, this season, to win themselves a wheel stand courtesy of Next Level Racing.
Yeah, the Going Gets Tough award for those, I believe, outside the well, don't really get a lot to... I don't actually know how to explain it, but yeah, it's definitely good that there's people and awards for people such as, I guess, people like me or people that had a bad race like Lukey and that today, who just didn't quite have enough to get regular points, but there's always something to fight for in this league. Every lap, every corner matters.
Yeah, we've seen every corner matters, as unfortunately Ollie M found out about. Then the final corner especially matters, as he lost a place on the finish line to Verheyen. But it was a fantastic win from Dainstar, fantastic second place from Janil. Those two looked for class of the field today, but you never know how it might go in dry conditions around the next circuit. Obviously France, pretty much a completely different circuit to here, especially with a extremely long Mistral straight, bit easier to overtake around there.
Yeah, you would like to think we'd get some DRS action, but you never know. Could have another wet race, and that's going to be chaos in its own right. So, looking forward to it either way.
Yeah, looking forward to it, and looking forward to having you with me in the com box as well again, Mac, and next week. That's not it though for the One Hub action today. You can check out the final tier, the pinnacle tier action. They are live, underway right now, just heading towards, they're on lap 10 of the race at the moment, and it's nice and dry for those guys at the moment, so you can check them out as well. You'll be able to check all the streams out on the YouTube channel as well. But for myself and Mac, we will see you next week. You'll see Mac first, 6:15 for the prospect tier, and you'll see myself and him in the box again from 7:15 for the French Grand Prix. Good night.